reports statewide. Mr. Finance Committee, we're down back to 2,000 cases today, and the city is 2,000.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order for our September board meeting. Welcome, everyone. If you would, let's stand and have the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The clock was right, yes. I actually wasn't paying.
Is it like once a year, it cycles the time?
It's almost daylight savings time, so it's just catching up. Or trying to use its lines. All right, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I will make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second.
Anyone need to take anything out or questions on anything before we move on? All right, the second on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Call to the public. I did not have any forms. Lynn, we're good? All right, thank you. Item 6, information and discussion items, student council reports.
So, Wesley was supposed to be here, and I'm not sure if he's just coming in. Yes, he's just coming in.
Fantastic, we have time. We're moving right along.
Yes.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Get up here and talk.
you're
saying, you're supposed to know that.
Council, give your report.
Right.
Right, stay right there, yeah, where the mic is, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, I am the student council vice president. Unfortunately, our president Leslie couldn't be here today, so I'm here to sub in.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Wesley.
Wesley.
Okay, that's it. I'm Wesley. Okay, come on, let me pull up here. I have a list of things. Okay, so we all good? Am I ready to start reading off what we're doing? Okay, so student council is getting busy with events, and we're excited to be planning these events considering that we did not last year. Our next events will be Homecoming Spirit Week. The chairperson is our senior class president, Sabrina Lopez, and she was the one that planned prom, which was very good, and so we're excited to see homecoming this year. The theme for our homecoming is lights, camera, poco. It's like a red carpet, kind of Hollywood kind of theme to it. And our spirit days, so starting Monday is, let's see here. Monday the 27th is Know Your Role. Seniors are the list stars, they will wear yellow. Juniors are supporting actors, they will wear green. Sophomores are the understudies, they will wear red. And freshmen are the extras, they will wear pink. And then that Monday, the 27th, we have a 30-minute assembly to kick off the week. Seniors will have the senior parade at 7:40 a.m. They will meet at Del Rio, drive to Heritage, and cross the highway towards Territorial and back to the school. Traffic will be controlled. Seniors will be given their class t-shirts and will take the 22 picture outside, which is where they line up on the field. They form a big 22, their graduating year. And then nominations for our homecoming royalty will occur next week during English classes and will be announced at the homecoming football game. Tuesday, the 28th, will be Fan or Famed. That is our theme for the day. People can dress as a tourist or as their favorite celebrities. We will have a Powerpuff game that night, same Tuesday, the 28th, which will run from 6 to 8 p.m. Students are $3 and adults are $5, and Bonfire will follow right after with free admissions. Wednesday, the 29th, will be the homecoming dance, which is Lights, Camera, Hoko, from 6:30 to 10 p.m. We will have our own DJ because we have the equipment to do so. And the playlist will consist of all clean, family-friendly music. Thursday the 30th, we will have another 30-minute assembly to promote the homecoming football game. And then Friday the 1st will be the homecoming game, and the theme for the student section will be neon colors. So all the students in the student section will be wearing their neon shirts and stuff. And then royalty will be announced at halftime. And admission is up to how much football the football team has decided to charge. And then for our student council budget, as of right now, we have about $32,000, which we will use for dances, decor, DJs, venues, class t-shirts, senior gifts, Stud Coast State, and senior field day. Next year, we want to buy all the students class colored t-shirts that correspond to their Skittles Day color. So like how for the new coming freshmen, we have the orange shirts we usually get them. We want to do that for all the classes, so we're thinking about doing that next year. And then paying for only sophomores and seniors So for the shirts, we'll be paying for only sophomores, juniors, and seniors because the office buys them for the freshmen. And one last note, for students that cannot afford certain things, Ms. D'Angelo and the class have budgeted money for the kids that can't afford stuff. So if nobody can afford something, they can come to us and we can work something out to get their money. And hold on, one more thing. Oh yes, for the senior trip, we voted to have it, but we are currently counting the votes for the destination. And we have 4 places, Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland, Adventure Park, or Six Flags. So those are our current choices we're trying to choose from right now, but we are gonna have a senior trip. And that is it.
Fantastic. Does anyone have questions for Wesley?
It's going to be a great beginning of the year.
Yeah, we're
Makes us
really
want to go
excited
back to
about
high
this.
school. Not really.
Keep up the good work. Thank you, Wesley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6B, superintendent's report.
All right, we have a few items on here. First of all, we're gonna start with enrollment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Wall.
Great job.
And the district continues to be up 150 ADM over last year, and which is and literally within 1 ADM of our pre-pandemic 100th day ADM. So it's 2260, I think, no, 2215 is where we're at right now. That's identical to where we were 2 years ago on the 100th day. Now, this year's gonna change just because of, we tend to lose high school kids, gain NK8 kids, so that number's gonna change as we get closer to the 100th day, which is end of February, beginning of March. But off to a really, really good start. There continues to be a significant increase in kindergarten enrollment. We were at 208, we are now at?
It's 208 right now, it's playing with 211, but I don't have those hard copies yet in my hands.
Okay, so that is the largest cohort we've had in a decade, at least. Great over last year, which was 135 kids. So fantastic numbers, and because of that, we're coming to the board to request another teacher later in the meeting. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's a fantastic problem to have. So we're super excited that parents are trusting their kiddos with us and with Territorial Early Childhood Center. We also have significant increase at the high school. Peter and I last week attended the ASBA Law Conference, and I'm actually going to give some time to Peter to kind of share his impressions of the law conference.
Do we do it now?
Yep, right now.
Do it now?
Yep.
You people should know me better than
He
this.
has notes.
I have notes. I have not enjoyed, the ASBA Law Conference is the best learning experience I ever attend while serving on this board. They bring in technical experts to not only go over current legal issues, but incredible background on specific topics for 2 straight days. So if you can bear with me, I did write up my notes. Some people not surprised. Okay. Cindy Thomas, who's the executive director, kicked it off.
Chris Thomas.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say,
Cindy
I don't
Thomas.
think I was there, but
Yeah, okay,
It
it does say Chris, but trust the guys. He updated you're all familiar with the lawsuits that are going on. The one about Proposition 208, which was a tax increase. A lot of the issue rested on the term, these are grants, not an income to the state. Now, the reason for that is very simple. There's a state constitutional limit as a percentage of the state budget that can be devoted to schools. And with that income, it would have exceeded that 49%. So some of us who heard about this said, well, that was a mistake. Why would they have done? They should have known better than that. Well, as Chris explained, and I'm not going to delve into it because I only understood a portion of it, there's some legal basis for terming these as grants that they think can stand up in court to keep it outside of the state budget limit. And it will be going to, they hope to get the state Supreme Court within the month to test that term. If that term holds, then that tax increase will stand. If it does not hold, then it dies. There's a second suit on the state budget bill, which had things like the mask prohibition and weird things like that. There's a couple of suits dealing with that. One of them, and this has been forever in Arizona, the state constitution says you can only have one topic in a piece of legislation. Well, when they had these bundled finance bills, they threw in the kitchen sink. All the bills, a lot of them that could not get through committee were thrown in just to get the bill passed. So there is a lawsuit challenging this year's comprehensive budget bill, saying that it's illegal because you can't put non-budget items into a bill which is labeled budget. The title, and there's another word in the phrase in the Constitution says, the title must describe all elements of the bill, and this did not. It just simply says state finance, whatever. Now, the mask bill, Ducey's anti-mask bill, there's another court case dealing with that. And that is under the Equal Protection Clause. And there's been a lawsuit filed saying you cannot treat public versus private schools differently. And it does. It's only addressing public schools. So the private schools, parochial schools and so forth are not affected by it. And there's a lawsuit challenging that. So as you can see, there's a lot of things going on in court right now to try to upend some of the stuff that the legislature did. Now, on some of the next one is our keynote. The keynote speaker was John Ratzenberger. Name means nothing to me, but I can't remember Cindy's name, or his name. John Ratzenberger was the loudmouth expert on Cheers. I took his word for it. But he was talking about CET and the desire and necessity for CET throughout our system. That's about as good as it got, because he just spent an hour giving anecdotes about his life and why it was good for him to have done manual labor, and why you need to know how to wire a circuit board or a house and so forth. So it was, I mean, he spoke very well, but he could have said his message in 5 minutes and done jokes the rest of the time, and we could just as well have. Sorry about that. John, not asking. Okay, now on some individual sessions, there's 3 that I wanted to highlight. One was the school's authority on setting regulations on our campuses, particularly dealing with THC, vapes, and all the marijuana stuff has now come so close to us because of legalization of marijuana. And basically, the bottom line is we have absolute authority. We could prohibit, of course, it's illegal for kids under 21 to possess it, but we could prohibit, which I think we do already, vapes on all of our campuses. But we can, do anything that we need to, whether it's sporting events, school activities off campus, anything involving our district. We have the right to regulate those sorts of things, which is, to me, was very, very good news. Another session which was interesting, somewhat disappointing, but very interesting, was the whole issue of affordable housing for staff people. Remember, we've been talking for a long time now about the problem of getting housing, John, for staff moving here. Just because there's not much available in Chino Valley or Paladin, and prices are high. So there were 2 or 3 examples from around the state of what districts did to provide for staff. All but one was very simple. They owned land and they actually built housing specifically for staff. Unfortunately, most of them required passing a bond issue to be able to afford to build the housing, which of course we have difficulty in doing, which sort of eliminated that excitement for me. But it was possible legally to give extra signing bonuses for housing for new staff. So that was legal. So if we have somebody who cannot find housing, it's like legally like a signing bonus, but it is for a system of maintaining housing if somebody's coming here from out of town. The last one I want to report on was titled "Avoiding Litigation." This one I almost passed out when I saw it because they started out with hazing. Now, I didn't realize that hazing is still a problem, but he showed physical photos and graphic descriptions about how hazing is still endemic throughout this country. And that hazing primarily affects boys, primarily affects sports. But he says that's one thing that you've got to be very careful about, that all of your sports affiliated staff, our coaches and staff are well familiar with the signs, because he said basically nobody who has been hazed ever reports it. The reporting comes from other people who are aware of it or have seen it. 0 times that the person has been hazed, and it's part of the culture apparently of sports that you don't show your weakness by admitting that you have been hazed. And he was very graphic in some of the examples of that. He gave other examples of physical problems, like he gave one where there was a school staircase, and unfortunately the school had a slight incline leading to the staircase, and some poor person in a handicapped chair lost control of the wheels, rolled down to the start of the stairs, and fell all the way down. And they had a graphic picture of what her head looked like after it's been split open at the bottom of the stairs. So again, careful looking for physical things that could be leading to danger to kids, which then could lead to lawsuits to the district. So he said, final wrap up, you need to have supervision in all activities, locker rooms, sports activities, and bus trips in particular. Be sure you have eyes on those events. And again, superb session, and I'm so happy I was able to attend.
I'm glad you're able to attend for all of us also. Any questions?
All right.
Thank you for your report.
Moving on, in the packet, there's 2 forms. Mr. Tono was talking about how he and his wife look at all the numbers. I do every day also. The first one is basically on the Yavapai County Community Health Services website daily. They have the county numbers, and this is just a summary. And then the next page is the Yavapai County revised benchmarks that are on the Arizona Department of Health Services. One thing to notice is there's two real benchmarks. There's cases per 100,000. This is from the Department of Health Services, and percent positivity. The percent positivity has been hovering kind of up and down a little bit in a relatively small range between 13 and 15%. But the cases per 100,000 was going up since July, and we are hoping peaked August 22nd, because it at 308 cases per 100,000, and last week it was 252. So we're hoping that it continues. We find out on Thursday mornings is when the results are posted, and I'm hopeful that we can continue that downward trend, and things will be okay.
John, if I remember last year, we were down in the around 5% range for testing positive.
At some point we were, correct.
So it just shows you
Yeah.
how much that has increased over
Yes.
last year.
And I think we were between 10 and 50 for the cases per 100,000 at one point. But these numbers are nowhere near what we were in January when we hit the really bad peak, but still significant. We still need to be careful, and but it's a positive trend that hopefully will continue. The Community Health Services Department released an updated letter for parents, basically describing how the school district is required, it's not optional, we're required to contact trace and to quarantine and isolate those students off of campus. We can't control what happens at home for those that either are positive or close contact. That's something we do not have options about. We have to do it. And so I know it's tough on parents, and it's tough on our nurse who has to tell the parents, but we appreciate those families that are keeping their kids home when they're sick and helping everyone else out in the process. There was on Friday, there was an announcement about the possibility of requiring vaccinations for employees of businesses over 100 employees. We have 280 employees. It's still unclear what those regulations, if they apply to schools. Unfortunately, Arizona is one of a number of states that follows the federal OSHA regulations, and this is going to be mandated through federal OSHA. It's just uncertain if it's just private companies or also government entities, and so those regulations are being developed as we speak, and we should know within a week or two how, if at all, we're going to have to address that. So.
I have a question. What is the percentage of our employees that have been vaccinated?
People don't have to tell us, so we don't necessarily have a firm number. My guess would be probably about half.
Half, 50%.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to get vaccinated, because the option is that you get tested weekly. And that's something, it's either be vaccinated or be tested weekly, and we have access to the tests. So it's something that if we have to do it, we can hopefully do in-house. So that would be the option that people have if they choose not to get vaccinated. So.
And if they do show a positive sign on testing, then we can quarantine them.
Correct. Well, actually isolate, right, when they're out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
So we are protected either way.
Correct. But again, don't know if that's it is, it conflicts with what's anticipated state law to start on the 29th. And federal law typically trumps state law, but I guarantee there's going to be court challenges. And so this could be tied up for a while. Who knows what's going to happen? I would not bet any money on either side. So anyway, really good news. We have this certificate of achievement for excellence in financial planning. I would pat John on the back, but this is not his year that this applies to.
Next year's your year.
I feel like next year.
The next year will be a third his and a third Rebecca's, and then the year after that will be all his. But this is something that I've actually talked to John before we learned about this, that we want to continue, and it's something that I started when I was business manager. Basically, a third party looking at the audit and to make sure that we are doing what we need to do as a government entity and reporting in a way that is how it's supposed to be reported. So there is going to be another one, I think, from ASBO International. Is that the other one that comes out that we're anticipating? But this is basically a sign that our finances are, the way we report them is accurate and transparent. So that this is it's something that we strive to do, to kind of a stamp of approval on our books. So we're excited about that. The Denise Pearson Scholarship, I wanted to spend a minute or two about that. And also I wanted, most of you know Pastor Wayne Ballard. He's in the back here. He's here because he is the chair of the board, president of the board, for the Chino Valley Education Foundation. So I'm gonna read a little story to you. This is what I read at that's on the back page. This is what I read during awards night about the Denise Pearson Scholarship. So in the early 1990s, a former superintendent, Dr. Ron Minnick, was called by an attorney asking if a scholarship fund could be set up for students at Chino Valley High School after his client's death. Dr. Minnick spoke with the attorney a few times to develop some language for the client, but Dr. Minnick was never told the name of the client at the time. Fast forward several years, Dr. Minnick received a call from another attorney letting him know that Ms. Denise Pearson had passed away on December 13th, 1999, and left a significant amount of money to the school district to set up a scholarship fund for graduating seniors at Chino Valley High School. Ms. Pearson also left money for her 2 horses to be taken care of until their death. Dr. Minnick never met Ms. Pearson, and no one else in the district seemed to know her. We don't know what connection Ms. Pearson had with the district, but we are grateful for her contribution to the students of Chino Valley High School. So, Karen and I got an email a couple months ago saying, okay, the Denise Pearson Scholarship Trust, which is the trust was run by Wells Fargo Bank, is sunsetting. It was a 20-year trust, and the trust is going away. So here's the money that you're gonna get, and you take care of it for the scholarship fund. So we talked to our attorneys, consulted John, and talked to Cindy, and we said, we don't want it. And the reason we don't want it is we can't do anything with it. So if we take this money, and the amount of money is $430,000, just so you're aware, it's a good sizable amount of money. And all of the scholarships have been paid for using the proceeds from that $430,000. Last year, we gave $17,000 away in scholarships, which was the earnings off that money. But we said, we don't want it because if we take it, we cannot invest it. It's against the law for us to invest that money. And though any scholarships that we would have to give, we'd make, 0.5%, if that, and it would likely be just going into the principal, into the corpus of the amount. So I contacted Cindy, and that's where Wayne comes in, where we are partnering with the Education Foundation, and with the help of our attorneys, convinced the Wells Fargo Bank to write the check to the Education Foundation. And I'm gonna let you take over what your plans are with the Denise Pearson Scholarship after that.
Well, great. Hello, esteemed board, and thank you for giving me a moment of your time tonight. The Education Foundation, just so you know, is a 501c3 organization. We're actually a qualified charitable organization according to Arizona statutes, and so there's a lot that we do with Hungry Kids Project, Homeless Project, and a variety of things. Part of our vision over the last couple of years was to develop scholarship funds and to provide that for the students of Chino Valley Unified School District. As we were working and building and trying to establish that, we found out about the Denise Pearson and the Wells Fargo wanted to wash their hands of it. The great news is this is such a time that we're prepared for. We are in the process right now of getting all of the legal counsel, all of our bylaws set up. We would like to continue the Denise Pearson scholarship as is, where we have financial planners, we have a fiduciary already lined up who will help us with investment advice and all of those kinds of things. We're in the process of getting legal counsel to make sure that everything that we're doing is completely above board. And with that, we want to continue this in as long as we're around. And the great thing about it is my children have been recipients of it. And so I know how significant this scholarship is for our students here in Chino Valley. And the greatest part about it is it's for our kids. None of the money goes to Prescott. It's for kids here in Chino to assist them in going to college. So we're very excited about the possibility, and we're very excited about being the conduit for this at this time.
Quick question, so you'll be able to use just the interest
Correct.
For the scholarships, and you won't have to touch the principal?
Correct. In fact, my understanding is that is how it's even been working in previous years. And one of the things that's happened, we've had several years where only a few students have applied, and so they've gotten large gifts from the scholarship. But again, because it's all based off of the interest of it, the principal will remain in what we can generate. Now this year, because we're receiving it halfway through the year and because of some of the things, we will be working with our board to probably use some of the principal in this first year, looking at the scholarships and needs. But our goal and intention is to generate the interest, and off of that interest to provide scholarships for our students.
Thank you.
So the foundation would set the criteria then?
Correct.
for eligibility and then
Correct.
review the applicants and make the decision based.
And a lot of that would be worked off of the previous policies and so on that we will receive from Wells Fargo as well as from the Cougar Center, the counselors and so on who work with them now. So we'll be developing all of that. We know that in January, that will all have to be completed in place so that we'll open up the scholarship. And then in February, we'll receive all of the applications. And hopefully by the 1st of March, we'll be prepared for the end of the school year.
In the past, it's been based on GPA, ACT or SAT score, and economic need. And it didn't go just to those that, well, there was, he said it, we had 3 students that shared $17,000 last year. And we only had 3 applicants. And that's, I think in many years, or most years that I've been involved, every kid that applied got a good amount of money. So last year we had 2 get $7,000 scholarships and 1 with a $3,000 scholarship. So it's definitely, for those out there that are here and listening to this, I was with student council today, said, apply, to the Denise Pearson Scholarship Fund, absolutely.
Is the criteria weighted then? I'm just curious.
So Wells Fargo had a weighted system. I think this is gonna be up to the Education Foundation to determine their criteria, how they wanna do it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
2 more things. We continue to experience a driver shortage. Those that have kids got a nice 9 o'clock call from me last night.
I saw that.
I apologize for that. That was inadvertent, but anyway, we had to cancel the Prescott Valley route indefinitely. We wanted to focus on those Chino and Paulden routes to make sure that the in-district routes were secure and that we could service those. Then our next focus is going to be on field trips, which is our athletic teams. My understanding is it might have worked out with some buses and everything, but we got quotes, it was gonna cost us $10,000 this week to transport kids for events. Because of, we didn't have drivers, and we were gonna have to charter some buses. So we can't afford that long-term. So we wanna make sure that our field trips are taken care of. And then our intent is to bring back our Prescott Valley route in hopefully the near future. So we'll be coming up with some ideas that we may have to throw some money at that we want to bring back to you in the future. One thing that is happening now or shortly is that Chris Walton, our transportation director, has gotten permission from the trust to offer like a school bus rodeo, say, where people that have no CDL or school bus experience can come and drive a bus over at the transportation department, just to kind of see what it's like. If you're afraid of driving a bus, come and try it out. It may be a good fit for you. We train people to get their CDLs. We train to get your bus certs. You get paid while you're doing that training. And so it's only a part-time job ultimately, but you get full-time benefits. You can actually get health insurance at 20 hours a week. So it can be for the right people, a parent, a mom, a dad that wants on the same schedule as their kids, that kind of thing, it can really work out. So the last thing is just a reminder, make sure it's on your calendars that we have the October 6th meeting is the first Wednesday of the month. So it's not a Monday. October 6th is a Wednesday. And I believe it's after National Night Out. Is that correct? So National Night Out is on the 5th. This is on the 6th, 5 o'clock at the Paulden Community Center. So it's not.
Karen's gonna send us all an email.
You're gonna send an email out? There we go.
Thank you.
So Paulden Community Center, 5 o'clock on October 6th. We're excited. This is kind of our first field trip as a board and reaching out to those, half of the current board lives in Paulden, so it'll be a home game for you guys. And so that will be good. That's my report. Any questions?
Remind me where the community center is.
When you're coming up 89, turning on the big Chino, it's the big building on your right-hand side.
Kind of right across from Ace Hardware. Yeah, you
That's
can't
what I
miss it.
thought.
The National Night Out is on what night?
National Night Out is the 4th.
Oh, the 4th on Monday.
It is
Yes.
Monday
On
the
Monday,
4th.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No,
So
that's
National
fine.
Night Out on Monday the 4th, our meeting is on Wednesday the 6th.
And there's a big sign there. I mean, it's hard to miss. It's an old fire station.
Oh, I know exactly.
Oh,
We're
For
good.
the cell phone tower.
with a big sign.
Anything else, Mr. Schultz?
That's my report.
Any questions or comments? Wonderful. Then moving on to item 6C1A.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So with the month of August, month end, we've got 3 or 4 numbers I'd just like to report, and then if you have any questions, that's great. We ended the month of August from last year, the 2021 year, with a grand total of 2.8 million in all the accounts. In the 2021 year, we spent 2.1 million in COVID-related grants. We had 4 of those grants. 2 of them will be closed as of last year, Ed Stabilization and COVID-1. We just got our buses today, so we can pay for that this year because we have that grant going for more year. So basically, those 2 are closed. ESSER 2 and 3 go forward into this year and into next year. So we're grateful for those, but 2.1 million was spent last year on COVID-related funds. And this year I have incomplete reports because most of the cash in all these reports is stuck in last year. So when we approved the annual financial report October 6th, all that cash in those fund balances, 803,000 in our M&O fund, will all roll into the 21-22 year, and then we'll be working from that real cash. So you've got reports from last year, and I won't give you one for the month of September from last year, but you did get one for the month of August, and it shows those ending fund balances and the activity. The last check we wrote out of the 2021 year was August 25th. We had some late utility charges and things, so now we'll be, after the October 6th meeting and October's activity reports, September's activity reports, you'll see just the 21-22 going forward. And I appreciate you approving the fundraisers. Been talking to Elizabeth Lechner in my office, and there's gonna be several more fundraisers this year than we had last year. So you will get notice of those. And we do have a consent item here. Our auditors want the board to be informed of all our auctions. So that's on the consent agenda as well. That's a USFR change. They want you to know when we're gonna auction surplus material. Basically, we try to recycle it 2 or 3 or 4 times, and if finally it's worn out and not useful at all, we dispose of it. And we do have in our student activity report, 112,000, and things are picking up quite a bit more than they were last year, so I can just mention that. Those monies are present and accounted for and used correctly, and there's no internal control activity that's fraudulent or anything. We have excellent student advisors that watch those funds.
Fantastic. Well, you covered everything. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Peter?
Not yet.
Okay, just so I ask.
Oh, he's got another one coming.
He actually did all 3 of them at once, correct?
Well, I gave you a little tip there on C,
Yeah.
just that it's complete and it's accurate. So if there's anything else you'd like me to discuss around
No,
there.
looks like
it-
there's
it-
gonna be her.
John, it's just a real quick question. I was surprised to see the encumbrances that high this early in the fiscal year. It almost looks like you rolled over the ones from last year into this year. I'm just going by memory. It seemed to me early in the fiscal year, our encumbrances were not right up to your budget line.
Well, I'd like to say then that the difference, and I'll get back to you with an email, and I'll show you last August, or I guess last September meeting and how many encumbrances we had.
Mhm.
I would just like to say that maybe our payroll communication is a little better,
Mhm.
and maybe we got all the payroll encumbered.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm gonna project, that might be the difference.
Yeah.
I personally rolled about 85 purchase orders over from last year to this year, what we call annual ones, the
Right.
utilities and
Mhm.
the one for the ag center over here, the 59,000 we pay the city for the water at the farm. So there's a few things I'll put in a detailed report and.
So I appreciate it. Yeah, because we don't have a lot of flex right now. You know,
Yeah,
our
that's right.
encumbrances are within 2% of
Yep.
our income.
Yep.
So I wasn't laying in wait for you. I was just busy today, didn't get a chance to call you, so I apologize for.
And there is, with that, there is some really good news that we know we're going to be sharing and it probably will be the December meeting, it might even be back to the November meeting. We know that we've got more students on site than we budgeted for.
Right.
So with that,
8 a.m.
we know that our budget is gonna creep up, and then that will increase hopefully that unencumbered amount as well.
Super.
So
Thanks,
rather than going down, which of
Yeah.
course is, student count is up compared to what we budgeted, 2,150 ADM, and we're standing right at about 22.
2215.
So we've got about 65 in the bank, so to speak.
Mhm.
And last year we had 2,057, so we're up about 165, 170 students. And I will send you, I'll send the whole board my answer on
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Consent agenda, does anyone need to pull anything off of the consent agenda? Beginning, good, all right. Can I entertain a motion then to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. All right, we are going to hear from Mrs. Cox. Item 8A, addition of one paraprofessional position at Territory.
So I'm coming tonight with a couple of different things. Originally, we asked for one paraprofessional, which is ahead of the other one. The paraprofessional, we are still over our staffing model, even when we get to the next one, to meet the needs of these kindergartners that keep coming in. As I walked up today, we were enrolling another one. So I don't know where the floodgates are gonna stop, but, so we're asking for a kindergarten paraprofessional to help with the surplus of kiddos, just to help the teachers with all of their prepping and working with the students mainly. Giving some more individualized attention.
What is your, right now, what is the highest student per classroom that you have in kindergarten?
Right now, I have 29 in one class.
Okay. I mean, that's a lot,
30.
that's a lot though, for one teacher to have. I mean, I are definitely.
It is a lot. It's a lot of classroom management.
Our staffing model is 25.
25.
Okay, okay.
But there'll be an agenda item 2 from now. that
Two, correct,
will
because
hopefully
I
address
need to do
that.
this a little bit better, but.
Any other questions?
No, I'll make the motion to approve of the addition of the paraprofessional and territorial.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next,
The next one is an additional paraprofessional for preschool. And this is one, typically it's for a special needs child, but our Child Find is doing a great job there as well. The kids are coming in and a lot of them are requiring more support. And this one's more for safety, this little guy, or this little one that's coming in. But we did receive a grant that we can cover it with a grant to cover this one, so.
I'll make a motion to approve additional one physical paraprofessional.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving right along to item 8C.
And now we're gonna ask for an additional kindergarten teacher, so that we can get closer to our staffing model and pull a couple of kids out, well, 3 to 4 kids out of a class. We'll still be sitting over the staffing model slightly, but that para will help out. So,
And do you already have somebody in mind for this?
well, we have a student teacher right now who is in kindergarten getting a certification that we could put, who has also worked for us previously. So I know her classroom management style, I know all of that. And she's, if I went off my last applications, nobody fell, other than the one that did truly fall out of the sky. So I would probably lean towards moving this student teacher into the position under an emergency cert until she gets finished.
Now, will the paraprofessional be in addition to this, or?
Yes.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the addition of one kindergarten teacher at territorial.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8D, personnel report.
I have one correction, so there is a supplement, so make sure you get your supplement as well. On the additional personnel report number 4, if you look all the way over to the right, we have an effective date of 5, I can't even read the.
24.
24, because I can go over it. It should be 5/24/22, the end of this school year.
Okay, that was gonna be my point.
Right. So that is the end of this school year, that is a correction that needs to be made. Yes.
I have a question about this one.
Uh-huh.
I am, after reading over this, I'm not okay with the way that this is put in our packets, and here's why. Is I see a letter of resignation, and then I see it come back,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like I've been on this board for 6 years, and I've seen lots of letters of resignation that hasn't given other people the opportunity
Mhm.
to state what they have an issue with. So I'm just asking, why this one?
Because there were, in the letter of resignation, there was what I felt was a personal attack. And so I gave the person that was the subject of that personal attack the opportunity to respond.
Because I do feel like we've had personal attacks on other employees before.
Yeah, I don't think to the same extent though.
Okay,
And, you know, I think you're right, but I don't think nearly to the same extent.
I just like things to be done fairly,
Uh-huh.
and I would hope that everybody that had a chance to defend themselves gets a chance to defend themselves.
Uh-huh.
So that's.
So you don't necessarily have an issue with that, the response being
No,
included, you just
No,
want
I don't.
other
I
people
don't-
to have that same
Yeah,
opportunity.
I don't have a problem with the fact that somebody is able to respond.
Right,
But I think that everybody should have the chance to.
and that's fair.
And
Yeah.
that, to me, that's fair,
Uh-huh.
because there's been certain situations that have been brought in front of us that we don't know the second side.
Uh-huh.
And so I think what I'm just asking for is if one person's allowed to state that everyone should be allowed to
Yeah.
state their sides.
And John, just for clarification then, if we approve this personnel report tonight, his resignation will have been effective as of end of May this year.
No, next year.
Oh, it still is next year.
His letter,
Well, that's why I read his letter as, that's why I was confused by it also.
well, his letter is effective the end of this current school year.
Okay, that's my concern. So this is my question, and I don't know if we should discuss this now or in executive session.
We can't go to the executive session because it's not noticed. I can answer it later,
Okay,
yeah, one-on-one.
yeah. So even though he has all this communication, he still wants to teach this coming year.
Correct,
And,
and we're working through it. I met with him today,
uh-huh,
and we're coming to some agreement that will allow him to finish the year. Our goal is for him to finish the year strong and doing what he's doing in a way that works for the district and for him.
okay, 'cause again, I was gonna ask for an executive session, I can't now, so I will
We
just.
can't talk about him in executive session.
So basically, I'll say is that you and Cindy feel comfortable us approving this report as it stands?
Well, he's resigned, so,
Yeah, but
you know, there's
he will
not-
still be on staff though this year.
well, but we can't terminate him, so
Yeah, no, that's
that's
what.
the only option that really the
No,
the
I
board
just wanna make
has.
sure we all understand, he
Yeah.
will be on staff this year.
Yeah.
Okay, and you and Cindy feel comfortable dealing with it during this year?
Well, I believe so.
To me, that's the most important
Yeah.
thing. I think all of us read very carefully, both his letter and Cindy's response, Cindy, which was excellent. Can't believe what you've done over this last year, to try to resolve this. But, no, I just want to feel comfortable that you all feel comfortable letting this person continue on the staff.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We had a good meeting today, so that was,
Super.
Any other comments or questions regarding the personnel report?
so just as a summary, 1 new classified, 40 classified subs, 8 resignations, 1 certified change, 4 classified changes, 14 extra duties, and 135 timesheets. But a lot of those were Friday school, which we started last week, which was,
Were those on the supplement?
not, those were on the supplement, correct, but there was other timesheets, so, yeah, so.
All right, so I'd entertain a motion for the personnel report, but please make sure that says with correction of date
Yeah.
and supplement.
I will make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented with the correction on number 4, the year corrected to 2022. And supplement.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item 9A, our targeted student achievement goals.
Okay, so I get to start, and I wanted to talk about a few things, just so we understand, because Arizona's state assessment system over the last couple of years has had quite a few changes, and it's a little bit confusing how it's all sort of evolved over time. Part of that was because of COVID and not having students in the building during fourth quarter of 2020, and then having some of those students take state testing in the fall last year, but not all of the students do that. And then doing state testing this year, but with most of the grades, not a test that we're going to do in the future. So, like, trying to come up with longitudinal data that's helpful, trying to understand where's this train headed, you know, all those kinds of things. So I wanted to just remind everybody that the test that we took, we had rolled to Arizona Merit, and then a few years ago, we rolled to what was called AZM2, but testing was suspended. And in high school, we had opted about 3 or 4 years ago to do the alternate state assessment, which was ACT, and you guys approved our opportunity to do that. We did that at the time, believing that the state would eventually choose ACT as the 11th grade high school assessment, and it turns out they did. So that's great. So for us, we're very unique compared to other districts in the state. Going into next year, or this year when it's official, we already have a couple of years worth of data to help us plan. So that was really great foresight on the part of this governing board to do something that allowed the high school to be able to start preparing for what we assumed was coming. So that was pretty cool. So, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that Territorial does not receive a school letter grade because Brandy's so excited, because they don't have any tested grade levels at Territorial. State testing it used to start in first grade. Many years ago, when I started my career, state testing started in first grade. Poor Miss Bryce was teaching, and all those, and Miss Reader, all those poor little first graders trying to have to learn how to bubble test and not lose the line, and all the things that were.
We did it in kindergarten.
Yeah, it was so hard, yeah, and the first year that, it counted was that, those California achievement tests a million years ago. So, at Brandy School, they use assessments, they use some local assessments from our textbooks, they use DIBELS, which assesses how a child is progressing with their language acquisition skills, reading skills, and they use an assessment called ESGI. In kindergarten, they also use some STAR math assessments and things like that. So they do a lot of monitoring using very sound assessments at third level. They just don't participate in state testing. Students in grades 3 through 5, we are using English language arts assessments that were developed at Del Rio. And we use assessments from our Wonders curriculum, and we use McGraw-Hill math assessments and STAR math to progress monitor kids throughout the school year. In Heritage, we have quarterly benchmark assessments from STAR math and STAR reading, and we have textbook-based local assessments. And one thing I wanted to share with you, we have been able to roll to stronger textbook-based benchmarking because you guys bought new books. And those new books came with a fabulous set of assessments that go with them that help us get a whole different kind of data set than we ever had in the past. So that was something that was super exciting, is that now we have some tools, and it was really cool because Carolyn was really digging in and Brandy's really been digging in, and they keep calling me, oh my gosh, we found all this amazing stuff. So I think it's really cool because last year was our first year with the books. For English language arts, but it was such a crazy year that this year we trained everybody all over again and sort of did a reboot and started fresh with it. High school students take ACT practice assessments, some locally designed text-based assessments, and the pre-ACT. John and I had the opportunity to go around and visit with each administrator on their campus and talk about some assessments and to really talk about it. And we asked them, there are some questions you'll see them answer in their presentation, there were questions that we asked them, but one of the most basic question that we asked was, is learning loss real? Because we hear lots of stuff about that, and the answer we found was different on every campus. That learning loss looks different at each school because, for example, and you'll see some amazing things in our spring test results, you'll see some things that really prove to us that learning loss is real. And so, for example, Heidi and I have talked even quite a bit more since the three of us met about the fact that in high school, we have some introduced material, you know, like in higher level math classes or higher level science classes. But in high school, we're using all the skills we learned at other levels to learn new things. We're not necessarily learning, you know, long division for the first time or how to write in cursive or things like that. We're applying all that core learning that we did so we can learn individually, take in new content, not necessarily new skills. The exception, of course, is things like trigonometry and calculus, where those are new skills. But one thing that we learned was, and it was pretty interesting, Ms. Bryce shared with us, and she'll talk a little bit more in her presentation, that they saw learning loss profoundly in sixth graders. And part of the reason was that they miss a lot of that crucial instruction at the end of fifth grade, that fourth quarter when everybody went home. And then their sixth grade year, because we had so many learning modalities, was patchy. You know, some kids stayed at home all year, some kids, you know, came when we had hybrid, some kids, you know, so it was, and we did some online instruction. And because of that, there are certain grade levels where we feel most that learning loss most acutely. And Ms. Cox is gonna tell you that we really saw it, or Ms. Reeder will also tell you that we saw it where kids were needing to learn really important cornerstone skills. So for example, if they didn't have fourth quarter of kindergarten 2 years ago, and then went into maybe a first grade where their family opted to have them be an at-home learner all year, that the students came to second grade. I was telling Mr. Scholl today, I just reviewed Mrs. Cox's first round of Dibbles tests. Our second graders, almost 59% are well below grade level, starting second grade in their language acquisition skills, in their reading skills. And so there are places where in certain grade levels, it's the most glaring because the stuff that came before that was so crucial. And so they're gonna tell you more about that and what they're doing to address it. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the state test results. They're in your packet on the sideways pages like that. And I wanted to, you know, I would love to say, oh my gosh, it was fantastic, but it wasn't fantastic. And one thing I wouldn't do differently, and I've thought about it since then, and we talked about, all of us have talked about it kind of individually and collectively. Last spring, we told our teachers, don't worry about state testing. You guys have had a horrible year. The students have had a horrible year. When we all were finally back in session and we knew we weren't gonna be hybriding or distancing or all the things, it was almost fourth quarter. And so it was one of those situations where don't feel like now that you have everybody back in the building, you have to just go berserk for like the next 6 weeks to try to pack everything in, because the kids weren't ready to learn. Some of the kids hadn't been in the building. We have kids even this fall who haven't been in an actual classroom for like 18 months. So you forget even like how to be a student, like a good citizen in your classroom, you know, to use like that elementary language that we use. Like you forget how to like share your stuff, keep your hands to yourself, you know, that mom isn't the one answering your questions and you have to raise your hand. And so they spent a lot of time just rebooting some of that, like the citizenshipness of coming back to school. And because of that, we do see it reflected in our test scores. And I wouldn't tell you that our teachers just kicked back or anything like that at the, you know, at the end of third quarter and into fourth quarter. They just didn't try to close a whole year's worth of learning gap in a few weeks. And so that shows too. I don't regret saying, don't make testing the most important thing. Just get back to the business of doing school. I don't think I would give different advice even in light of our test scores. But I do want to tell you, we had some amazing bright spots. And I would tell you that our most amazing bright spot was the 4th grade.
I can see that.
And when you look and see, and we have some of our most experienced teachers in 4th grade, and that really, really shows. Our 4th grade scored 11% higher than the state average in English language arts, and they scored 14% higher in math. I mean, and I would tell you even this, we were down a teacher in 4th grade. We had an unexpected resignation about a month into the school year. And the rest of 4th grade said, you know what, don't hire anybody, we'll all take extra kids. And they all took extra kids. So even with extra kids, it was like the most amazing thing. And, I guess I would tell you the sad part is some of them are like really teetering on the brink of retirement, they're there. But to me, they've been in our district for years, that stability shows, their experience shows, and they just knocked it out of the park. And we had some areas when you kind of glance around at the ELA scores, for the most part, except for at the high school level, we were within, swinging distance of the rest of the state. High school 10th grade, yeah, not so much. But when you think about it, some of those kids had very little direct instruction starting with 4th quarter of their 9th grade year, and were kind of hit and miss. When we look down at the math scores, Mrs. Reeder's she'll tell you a little bit about that 3rd grade math deficit. And I would tell you, if we all think back to 3rd grade, it's a bit of a stretch, I'll be honest. I remember my teacher's name, Mrs. Ferguson. But what do you learn? Think about what you learn in 3rd grade. Multiplication and division. And at the end of 2nd grade, they learn a lot of the cornerstone skills that enable students to perform successfully. Whether it's, when you think in terms of, am I doing single digit addition and subtraction, now I'm doing multi-digit where I'm having to carry and borrow and things like that. That really showed. And so, but you know what, I would tell you, last year's 3rd grade, it was rough, but I know that they have headed into the grade level with the strongest teachers in our district. So I have a ton of faith that even though they left 3rd grade behind, we've got the team to help turn that around at the 4th grade level. And you'll see that 4th grade did an amazing job. And then as you glance through, we talked a little bit about what Ms. Bryce has said regarding some of that 6th grade issue. And then one of the things I would like to help us remember is that the state test in math for high school has items in it that our students haven't taken yet. It contains Algebra 2, and a lot of our 10th grade students are only as far as geometry. So when we look at that score, it's a bit deceptive because we know that not like our honors kids or some of our kids that are more advanced in math have had that Algebra 2, but a lot of our gen ed students have not. And so that creates a deficit as well, so.
But Cindy, it's still required for graduation, right?
It is still required for graduation for all students, except our center students.
Yeah.
So, and then if we turn the page, we have the AIMS Science. I put it on here just because I didn't want you to think that we didn't do it. It was a field test, so they don't give you a score. We don't even know how we did. They don't send us a score. But just so you know, we did do it. We didn't test in 2020, and then 2021 was a field test, so we don't know how we did. And then you can see the ACT results. I would tell you that we are, when you kind of look through and see where are we composite score-wise in English? We actually improved from 2019 to 2021. Our math composite is virtually unchanged. Our reading composite went down a little bit. Ms. Wolf's gonna talk to you about some things they're doing in that regard. Our science composite went up, and our overall composite was within kind of a statistically insignificant range of change. And so even though we're still behind the national average, this was actually 2 cohorts of students. So juniors from last spring were in this score mix, and seniors took it in the fall. They should have taken it spring of their junior year, and it was the one group the state decided, well, you didn't get to take it, but we want you to do it in fall of your senior year. And the craziest thing happened, and we all were like, what the heck? The kids, we weren't in session when the kids had to take it. They were like at home learning. And so Miss D'Angelo, they all created a day. They sent the word out to all the seniors, hey, we need you guys to come in and take ACT. And we thought, yeah, like nobody's gonna show up, right? Like nobody cares. They're not, we actually had a really good turnout, and the kids blew it out of the water. And we were like, they didn't even go to school fourth quarter last year, you know, we were at home learning, and here they came in to take the test when we weren't even fully in person, and they did really, really well. So they kind of helped carry the day. And so our 11th grade was a little bit lower, but that group of seniors really helped carry the day. So I wasn't disappointed with how our students performed on ACT. I think overall, you would expect that we would have, done that, and we did not see it. So that's a testament to me that a couple things happened. Students did take advantage of whether it was Learning Lab or online tutoring from our teachers. We also the high school offered before school and after school tutoring last year. And we had quite a few students take advantage of that. Ms. Wolf was the coordinator for it. And I think that because students feel that impending graduation cliff, that I think some of them were more diligent about taking advantage of some of those opportunities, and academically came out okay, not great. So that's the summation of what the test scores look like. I can talk to you about what it's gonna look like this spring. We have a new test that's called AASA, something like that. It's a really bad acronym that only makes a word that sounds naughty when you try to make it to a word. And this will be a field test year, so we probably won't have scores from this coming spring, but we will have ACT scores and AIM science scores this coming spring.
They'll still do the ACT then.
Yes, yep, and the whole rest of the state's doing it now too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. It's a lot to take in, and I've had a lot of time to kind of ruminate on it. I wish it was better than it was. But I'm confident that we have a plan, and I think Heidi's up first. Yep. And we're using the thing today. We're in the process of changing up our boardroom presentation systems and cameras. It'll probably be about 5 months, but we'll have moving cameras, better mics, better screens for you guys, but for now, we're all going that way. Good evening, everyone.
All right, so learning loss, I like Cindy talking about the train. So for me and for my other principals, I think about we need to mind the gap. There is a gap. If you've been to England, they always tell you when you get on the train to mind the gap. So this is what I'm thinking about for my students, minding the gap. So as far as learning loss, as we talked about, or Cindy talked about, we have test scores that we wish were higher. And we know that the loss of instructional time, and especially at the high school level, that guided practice time where the teacher's there and practice the skills that the students need, we're, especially in our CTE programs and some of our science labs and those kind of things where you actually need that guided practice of the teacher, we weren't able to accomplish. And then there was a technology barrier. and the decrease in daily academic schedules. At the high school, a lot of my students were sharing computers with their siblings or having to go ahead and 1 or 2 computers with 4 or 5 kids, combined families, so that played into it. Also inconsistency with the school schedule, just going from hybrid to in-person to whatever, distance learning. And it's not, it's just the reality of what we faced last year. And then students missing school due to once we were back in the quarantine time. And then some of our students did not take advantage of the student support lab that we had available every day. One of the things that the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, the kids really didn't get that normal transition in learning how to be a high school student. And I see some of that even right now with some of their habits. They got out of practice of being at school. And then also that social interactions, that's really important to them with the staff and with their fellow students. Emotionally, there was a lot of anxiety. The biggest one that I heard about was, am I on track to graduate? They were very concerned about, because of the age of my kids, they have a lot of, not that the other students don't, but there's home stressors that happen, financial stressors where some of my students had to work to help their families out during that time. And then some of my students had jobs and they really had a hard time coming back to in-person learning. They stayed online. So those are just some of the things that played into the last 18 months.
Excuse me, some of the concerns that you've been talking about, obviously you would expect those last spring. Are you still hearing those same things as fall, since school started? Or?
Yeah, I think that the seniors have that anxiety about being on track to graduate, and I'll talk about what we're doing about that. And then also, some of my students are really relied upon to be part of the income of their family still. And I know I lost a few kids, even though we've gained kids overall, to going on completely online somewhere else and working.
Social behaviors.
Yeah. Alrighty, so, sorry. So what we're doing as our focus, so we went with all of our departments and looked at the standards.
And you have their goals in your packet.
Yeah, and we identified them and developed by each department. And then we know that we're gonna do benchmark testing. And we're gonna use Pearson math and biology assessments. Science is difficult at the high school because usually it's one teacher that teaches one thing. Like I have one earth science teacher, I have one chemistry teacher, I have one physics. Biology is the only one where I have 3 teachers teaching that. And then Algebra 1 and geometry and other science classes may use the Pearson assessments that go with it that came with the textbook. And then teacher-created assessments, where we're using our English 9, decided to use grammar as their benchmark testing. They designed a test to give to all English 9th graders, and all of our benchmarks will be done every quarter, once a quarter. So we felt that the grammar would help the kids with both their reading and their writing skills. And then if the teachers were teaching the same course, then they use the same benchmark test, because we want to see how one teacher compares to another, so they can say, your kids did really great on that question, my kids didn't, how did you teach that? So they can kind of work together on improving what they're teaching. And then, of course, we have the ACT practice test, and we decided that English 10 would take the practice test. They don't take it till 11th grade, the ACT test, because one of the input I got from Miss Moyer, who's one of my English teachers, is when she was a proctor, she saw that the kids were freaking out with the time constraint with ACT. So she felt it would be good if we started practicing that the year before. So the kids would get used to that being timed, because you only get I think it's like 45 minutes for the English reading portion. It's very limited, so we want to make sure our kids are used to that time constraint. And then, of course, English 11 Algebra 2, and some of the science will use the AC practice tests up to the level. And so how will we know our students have learned? We'll utilize our assessments from curriculum pertaining to those essential standards. We'll use summative assessments conducted quarterly, again, Pearson, teacher-created assessments, and ACT practice tests. And of course, we'll have our state assessment, the ACT, in the spring to see how we do. Any questions so far?
And I'm gonna let them know too, because I think I left this out, that ninth grade takes a test called ACT Aspire as their state assessment. We pay and give the pre-ACT to all 10th graders, even though that's not required. We do it so we have good data, and then the 11th grade takes the ACT. So 3 years in a row, we're practice.
Yeah.
Right.
So moving forward, so we're database decision making. We're going to use our data collected from benchmark testing, any locally school created tests, textbook tests, practice ACT, and we're having monthly data meetings to go through how the students are doing on those, like chapter tests and the teacher created tests. Instruction includes Kagan active engagement strategies. We're focusing on that now that we're back in person. School-wide focus on integrating reading, writing, and mathematics across the curriculum, before and after school tutoring, counseling. We have a social emotional support from our certified counselor for those kids that are stressing out about stuff. And we do our annual credit checks with all of our kids. So we want to make sure, and we always do our seniors first. So Mrs. D'Angelo has met with just about every senior to make sure they're on track. And if they're not on track, we make sure that they're in the right classes. If we need to give them an online class through our CDI program, we do that to make sure that they can graduate with their cohort. And we've sent a few students that are very far back from their credits that are on track to Aspire. Currently, we have about 20 students there. So hopefully they get caught up and they can come back to us either in January or in May to graduate with their class. And we've already had workshops with our math and ELA teachers at the lead. We developed SMART goals for all other subjects. So they came up with goals that teachers could help math and English, because those seem to be the areas, because a lot of the science ACT is about reading comprehension. It's really not about science standards. It's more about if you can read this, read the chart, gather information from it. So we went ahead and all of our teachers who are not math or English have made SMART goals where they're going to go ahead and work on things that will help all of our students achieve on the ACT, or just in general, just to improve achievement. And our instructional coach meets regular with our students, and all teachers are being taken trained, and we have SEI refresh videos for our teachers if they're struggling with students that are learning English. And finally, for our parent outreach, we have parent-teacher conferences. We are having our first one this Thursday night. And we also have ones that we go ahead and set up between administrators and counselors to meet with students who are struggling. Our Spanish-speaking family night is planned for the 23rd. And we have that all in Spanish so that we can go ahead and explain graduation requirements, attendance, everything. So we'll have Rosa Maria and Ingrid Johnson come in and Yvette translate for us. And then I've already started our D&F list on our first progress, and we will be calling parents and letting them know about our tutoring. So that is our plan to mind the gap, as I call it.
Heidi has about 17 students this year who have no English skills, speak no English. Yeah, this is our highest number in quite a while.
Are these people who've moved into the district recently, I presume then?
And we have about 30% of our student population at each campus comes from Spanish-speaking households, except at Heritage where 34% does. I don't know. I have no explanation for that.
All righty, any questions for anyone? I'll send it over to Julie.
I would surmise that other districts are having the same kinds of issues.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
I have friends that teach in California, Colorado, Arizona, Michigan, and everybody's kind of in the same boat.
and they're having success with the same kinds of remedies that you've described,
Yes,
or they expect to have.
yeah, I talked with them about what they're doing, give them some ideas, they talk to me about what are we doing here?
Well, and I'm gonna brag on Heidi, she is, the high school's undergoing accreditation this year. And so not only is she dealing with making sure that all our paperwork is in line for that, because of that, she has an opportunity to be on teams that are monitoring accreditation for other schools around the state. So she is getting the insider's view on what other schools are doing.
Yes, I'm gonna be doing that the last week of September virtually though, they are not doing it in person this year. Yeah. Miss Julie?
That's pretty cool.
Thanks, Sarah. Good evening. Well, so is learning loss real? So Cindy covered a lot of this, and we met with Peter as well, and I mentioned this in our meeting. So we do have low test scores. That's right in front of you, you see it, but I want to bring some things to your attention. 20% of our school days last year were distance learning. 35% were hybrid, so they were coming every other day. 45% we were all in person, and I think that's really important that we realize that. So is learning loss real? Sure, it is. But I've also done some research to see what the experts are saying about learning loss and if it's real due to the pandemic. And one study here I have is that it says that the learning loss for reading is going to be minimal, which our test scores show that. And the reason for that is because a lot of the learning was done at home, and that parents are better equipped to support reading in their homes than they are math, which makes sense. I wouldn't be able to help my students with their math, so that makes sense. Well, I could first grade. So, but the math, they say to expect math achievement to decrease by 5 to 10 percentile points or lower. Also, in the study, it talks about that we're also going to see low scores due to unequal opportunities for learning, depending on whether students had access to technology and parental support during school closures, which I think we saw that and heard about all of that in your meetings throughout last year. Also, it says, do we even really know what the learning loss is just by comparing test assessments for the last couple of years? And it says the long-term ramifications, we haven't even seen those yet. And so those are yet to come for all of us. But I asked my colleagues, my staff, if they thought learning loss was real. And I'd like to read what some of them said. Came from my ELA team. I would say it depends on how you look at it. I do believe students will often forget what they learned, especially in the area of math. Although some students do forget, the foundations they have learned are not lost. I see they're able to pick things up again once they're reminded of how to do something or given the opportunity to practice the material again. Here's one that my Title I teacher, Nancy Morgan, wrote, and I thought this analogy was very good. So I'd like to share it with you. She does not believe that learning loss is real. Learning is continuous. Our path to learning can vary. The pandemic, for example, our students were forced to adapt to a learning path that required much more independent accountability and the ability to grasp a completely new concept and routine, virtual classrooms. The quote unquote, I would venture to say that students have learned a great deal in the past couple of years due to this pandemic. If I found myself stranded on an island for a year without any reading materials, I would not lose my ability to read. Once I was rescued, I would be able to pick up something and read it. She wasn't going to lose that. In fact, I would have learned much more about myself, how to find other modes of communication, how to adjust my role in my current situation, and how to complete new tasks. So new learning simply ignites prior knowledge. Learning is not lost. It does not need to be brought back up. It does need to be brought back up to the surface once in a while, but it's not lost. You know, Nancy is one of my teachers that has a strong relationship with every one of her students. She could sit and talk to you about every one of them and feel very comfortable with that. She is one of my teachers that does believe in the growth mindset. And if you walked into her classroom, you would see that every day in everything she teaches. And her approach is that in life we approach many different obstacles, and it's how we have many obstacles in our life. It is how we approach them that will determine the outcome. And as we know, that is true. So is learning loss real? It's a matter of opinion by some, as we're seeing. So one thing I want to talk about, and Cindy brought it up, is the social skills. If I was working on my doctorate, I would want to study the class of 2027. They are the class that did not get to finish the last 9 weeks of 5th grade, and they did not get to come to middle school the first 9 weeks of 6th grade. They did not have their middle school orientation. The parents did not receive a middle school orientation. So it was all new to them. They had no idea what they were coming to or what to expect that very first day on our campus. And I think it'd be really interesting to watch them throughout the years and see how they do, not only in school, but as adults. I would be interested in seeing how they function as adults in our society. Because what they suffered is severe social deprivation. And I think the social, emotional well-being of these children they were attacked. They did not have what they needed to socially improve and grow as a middle school student. And so to me, that's what I'm concerned about more than their academics. Because they can Google what they need to know about science and social studies. But can they Google how to act out in society, how to interact with other people? That's the skill they need. And so that's my concern for them. And then the emotional part of it. You know, we were told not to worry about the tests. We were told to just get them through it. Do you know, we had over 400 makeups for our test due to the pandemic. And we had kids who were afraid they were going to fail the grade they were in if they did not pass that test. I had parents calling me, concerned that their child was going to be retained. I mean, these fears are real, and that's what these students dealt with. You know, how could I catch up my student? How, you know, am I behind? What's going to happen to me? I just think there's so many moving parts out there that we need to look at besides the academics. So how do I do this, Kim? To the right. So how are we gonna know? How are we gonna know that where to focus? My teachers took the AZM2 and they're comparing it to the assessments that we're using this year. So all my students took pre-test the first 2 weeks of school. In math, they took the McGraw-Hill. Reading, we did the STAR reading. My ELA teachers made a teacher-made assessment based on their essential skills standards that they have to have for that grade level. And my science also have a pre and a post that they'll take. So all my students took those tests within the first 2 weeks. And then my teachers took those results and compared them to my AZM2 results. And that's how they came up with their goals that you have in front of you. How are we going to know they learned it? Well, we give formative assessments weekly in our classes, and that drives our CAT, our Cougar Academic Time, that we use for response to intervention. And so they will do formatives on a weekly basis, and then we will do a summative assessment 3 times a year to get those benchmarks. Our last benchmark is right before our state testing, so our teachers can see exactly what we need to focus on right before the testing. But they're watching that weekly, daily. Our students are also responsible for tracking their own growth and being responsible. Our goal is for them to take responsibility for their own learning. And so they will do that as well. Next, how are we going to achieve our goal? This year, we've been doing the 30 minutes a day for our intervention time for math and ELA. We gave it a term this year. We call it Cougar Academic Time. It's the last 35 minutes of the day at Heritage Middle School. And so they are, every Monday, they are given a class where if they need reteach, they'll be told to either go to their ELA teacher or their math teacher. If they don't need reteach, then my other teachers are teaching enrichment classes. So they get to do enrichment. One thing that we're doing different this year, instead of pulling out a child 4 weeks a month because they're constantly behind, we want to give them a break and give them a chance to be with their students that are in enrichment. So we made it where students will only be allowed to be pulled out twice a month for interventions, to give them time to be with their peers and have that enrichment as well, because that is important as well. We are progress monitoring. We're using our essential standards and the target skills. So my teachers have broken down the standards to essential standards, and then they've broken it down further to their target. What is it they have to know to move on to the next class, next grade level? What is it they need to know to be successful for the next unit? So they're focusing more on targets, and that's what they're assessing them on. We have, you're probably asking, well, Julie, thinking, well, what are you gonna do about that social emotional? I wanna show you, hand out to you what my counselor, I have a new counselor, Miss Nolan, and she is, why don't you just take one and pass it. She is going to start this next week, going in with 6th graders once a week and start working on their social emotional health. And she'll meet with 6th graders. You're gonna see the letter that was sent home to families. And once she's done with 6th grade, she'll do it with 7th grade and she'll do it with 8th grade. Our goal is to catch our students up with their social and emotional health. And we believe that once we can fulfill what they're missing emotionally, that they will be prepared to come and walk onto our campus and be ready to learn. Any questions?
Any questions?
Julie, I just want to thank you. We did have a chance to talk about the unique situation middle school has with the gap that the kids had during that incredibly important part of their life. And I've got to congratulate her. I'm sitting here awestruck on the efforts that she's going through now to overcome that, very sensitive time period in the kids' lives. And thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I'm, to be honest with you, I'm not surprised at seeing some of these results. I'm a mom, and this last year, a single mom who was working, and I don't know how we made it through, and so I can't imagine how everybody else feels. I know that, every time I drove by the liquor barn, the line was like right there.
That's how you know.
That's how I knew how everybody was feeling with it. But in all seriousness, it was, even having a kindergartner, there's stuff, when you said, you could do 1st grade math, I was like, well, I wouldn't be so sure about that. It's a lot, things are a lot harder than you think they are, but I feel bad. I do want to tell you that I try to find the good out of this, and I guess speaking from my own family is something good is that my kids learned skills that probably my older boys didn't learn. Like there was laundry to be done that my older boys never did because they were always in school playing sports. So there is some good, that I try to find out of it. But I definitely think these scores, I know I couldn't help Jordan a lot of times with her stuff that she needed. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So Del Rio, learning loss is real. I think our scores indicate that. It's also the lack of instruction. And Julie was just saying how much time we've spent online and hybrid, but the lack of FaceTime, lack of time, the connection that teachers have with their students. Whenever they taught students, whether it was online or hybrid, I mean, it was limited as to their time because they grouped kids also. We also had a lack of support with the time constraints. Our special ed and title supports, they filled their day, but it was more limited than what they have when they're on campus. And then, of course, the students' accountability was a piece, that was a strong piece. We weren't sure if the students were going to attend that day or if they were going to do their work or not. So the students' accountability was part of the whole learning loss. But we're gonna say what's next, what's the steps, and set our students up for success. We have structured our day with more efficiency and effectiveness. We've increased the instructional time for reading and math. Something that we weren't able to do last year was to do walk to read and walk to math. The walk to read is 3rd through 5th grade, where we group students according to their ability based on a test assessment that they take. And then we work with them at their level to push them and to help them to make the gains. And we weren't able to do that last year in reading or in math. We've also looked at our curriculum guides. We were, Cindy was telling me that last year was the first year for our Wonders and our Wonder Works. And so we dug a little bit deeper this year into that, and we've done a pacing guide so that we can make sure if we have all of the days of instruction, where we're going to be by the end of the year. The collaboration amongst teachers has been tremendous this year, which we didn't have last year. And then we've also got an additional para that is also helping and supporting that we didn't have last year. We're also going to be doing progress monitoring, our benchmarks. It's going to be just like all the other schools. Our benchmarks is going to be quarterly as well as bi-weekly. And then we've also got after-school tutoring and Friday school that we're going to be doing to help our students make those gains. Something that we've done this year was the collaboration with the teachers and the in-service in all of our Wonders, Wonder Works, and Top Score writing, which this is, we've got some new teachers as well as some older teachers that have done it for a couple of years now, but like I said, Wonders and Wonder Works is new last year. 4th grade anomaly was they are seasoned teachers, and they also tutored after school when they were allowed to do that. So they put a lot of face time as much as they could into their kids as well. Questions?
I always look at you first. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Brandy? What do I do? I've never used this little clicker.
Good job.
I did it. Yes. So back to what we talked about, the learning loss. Yes, it's real, but like Julie said, it's different. It's not necessarily the same thing. They lost that face-to-face time with the teachers, learning those specific skills that we're looking for. But a lot of them, they gained a lot of stuff. Just like Annie was saying earlier, some of the skills they have were like, wait, where did that come from? That's not something we've taught them. So they have family skills with them. However, the biggest impact we're seeing is the social emotional. What do they learn in kindergarten is to share everything. And what have we told them now? Don't share anything. Don't share your crayons, don't share your pencils, don't share your anything. So we've kind of gone backwards. I mean, before we're always writing goals for special ed to learn to share things, and now it's not to share, we're not interacting. And so it's hard. Those are the skills that we've lost. So it's really the school structures, the lack of the school structures where they have to get up in the morning, brush their teeth, get breakfast, and get out to school instead of on their own time frame. So that's been hard. And just following consistent routines. At home, it's a little bit, you can do a little bit more slow paced at mom speed, because you're not trying to hurry everybody out the door. So that's been some of the routines that they have lost. and the interaction with friends. They don't know how to be a friend. How do I make friends? So those are the bigger impacts we're seeing. Kindergarten, our kindergartners are right where they're, pretty much where they're supposed to be. That's exactly where they're supposed to be. First grade, we already talked about a little bit. Those who are now second graders, they lost that critical time in kindergarten, carried over through their first grade. And, in first grade, it's carried over. And so we're seeing the impact on our second graders. But they have other things that they in place, so we're gonna do okay. What are we doing with this? We have our grade level goals that are targeted based off of what they're needing. We have our benchmark assessments, the ESGI assessments. All of our ESGI assessments are one-on-one assessments that we do with our kindergartners. We do accelerated reading, progress monitoring. This year, something we're doing just to get on top of that is to do monthly monthly data meetings where Mrs. Myrick and myself meet with all grade levels. We look at the data and we look at everybody. If one teacher is doing, if her data is going up, then let's talk about what is she doing different that we can all implement. So to really jump on board with that. And then we have quarterly assessments just to make sure we're on track to meet those goals by the end. Lots of professional development. Emily, our instructional coach, meets with the teachers regularly. She meets with all teachers, but any new teachers, she meets with them daily. Some are hourly. We have our Wonders and our Wonders Works reading that we did the training with. All teachers are Kagan trained, and we have SEI, Rosa Maria has shared lots of great videos for our teachers to really jump on board with our kids. Kagan, all of our teachers are using, and we're doing monthly and weekly walkthroughs to check on that Kagan, and we have some incentive stuff going on. And we also have our curriculum pacing guide with targeted skills that we're using to keep us all on track. And the Wonders Works, or the Wonders and the Wonders Works has really changed it for us. So thank you for buying that curriculum because it's amazing. We also have school-wide interventions. We have our transitional first grade, which is new this year with a paraprofessional, and we're already seeing some gains in that classroom. Those are the kids that just needed a little bit extra. We just needed a little extra stuff. We have our daily, we have Title I push-in services where we send staff into classrooms to support reading. And then we also pull out kids that need a little bit extra and have face-to-face interaction with our Title I staff. We have ELL services provided by our paraprofessional that you guys approved with our Esther's money. And so she's meeting with kids every day, working with them. Cup time intervention is where we do almost exactly like what Julie was talking about at Heritage. This is where we can pull kids and do intervention or enrichment activities with them. We also have, for that social emotional, we have a certified education, a certified school counselor. That's what's sitting right there that I have for Karen. She is working with all the kids. We treat it like a specials classroom. Every class goes through her class during the week to work on social skills, just how to be a friend, how to let things roll off your back if kids say they don't like what you're wearing, because those are the big things. Or I'm not your friend today, but tomorrow I'm your best friend. So she's working on that with the kids, how to handle that, but everything is not bullying. You're not being bullied, because that's a buzzword. And we also do monthly positive action. We have a monthly positive actions focus that we also do assemblies for, bring the parents in and the kids get recognized for that. We do our Friday school, and we have after school tutoring that we have started. Last week we started Friday school, and the kids were excited. They wanted to know why more kids didn't get to come. And then we have parent engagement activities, which we have scheduled this year just to help parents know that not everything has to be paper pencil, that it can be fun activities. So we do ABC Bonanza, and we also do games galore where we make games and we teach them how to write in spaghetti noodles and shaving cream and just make it fun instead of paper pencil.
Did you say shaving cream?
I did. Shaving cream is the best.
I heard it right.
We write a lot in shaving cream
With
and
their
salt
fingers.
and with their fingers.
Oh.
So there's lots of different things because we get stuck in that paper pencil, kill and drill. And there's so many other ways to work with, especially with our little ones. So we bring our parents in for that and have fun activity night. So, any questions?
I made a stupid statement, I'm done.
You're fine. No, parents ask us all the time.
No, I'm trying to envision it right.
We spray it on the table, smear it out with your magic hand, and then write with your finger.
Well, and they're young enough, they're probably not gonna have shaving cream fights yet.
Well, we have rules. We do have rules, and it only takes one that they have to wash their hand and the shaving cream
Because
gets
if-
put away.
If Julie did that, that would not be something you want her age kids to have
Yeah.
anything close to.
No, they would have too much fun.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I would tell you, I think if you didn't know it before, that you know it now, that you have the right people in place. These are fantastic building administrators with lots of experience who are super in tune to the needs of their kids and know their kids by name and know things about them and are working with those kids and families. And if nothing else, what I wanted you to hear tonight, because we all know they're doing great things, we don't always get to hear about all those great things, but I wanted you to know we've got the right people.
Well, and I was gonna hit on that also. I think I can speak for all of us up here that none of us are questioning the ability of our teachers. None of us are questioning these scores. None of this is a surprise. We have good people. So thank you.
A question for Cindy, if I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Are you seeing then when kiddos are graduating from high school, are the colleges actually lessening or lowering their requirements for admission?
Well,
Do you see that happening?
It's been interesting because I actually dug, that's a really cool question, because I actually dug into some of that this year to see where enrollments were. You know, like where universities, where their incoming classes as large as usual and things like that. And across the board, I would tell you, some huge universities aren't seeing the number of on-campus students. They're seeing kids who are choosing to stay at home and continue to learn online. Because they've become comfortable with the format and they save 30% or more of the cost because their kids aren't living in a dorm and so in some ways, they've been trained and prepared to be successful in a way that we wouldn't have envisioned 20 months ago, that kids would be ready to make that kind of transition, but they are. And we also have seen, like college's enrollment is very robust and everybody got a free class this year. Everybody in the whole community could have a free class at Yavapai. If you wanted to go take tennis, you could, and no matter who you are. And so there are lots of things that we're seeing, and I would say this, I think one of the most interesting things is that colleges have had to forego some of the standardized testing, like the ACT and SAT. Starting in the spring of 20, all the testing centers were closed. So kids couldn't take a test anywhere. And so I think that's something that may turn in higher ed, is requiring certain scores on those kind of tests for admission, because they have 2 years worth, almost 3 years worth of students coming to them who never could take it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in higher ed, but one thing that was really surprising to me was the number of people who, like their students are opting to be at-home learners.
Wow. Good question.
So yeah, that was a great question, because it's changing higher ed.
Thank you.
Then let's move on to item 10A. It's the first reading of policy JICA and regulation JICA-R, student dress.
So this came up, we are in a community where people hunt, people shoot, people fish, people use their bows and arrows. And there was some inconsistency about the message that a weapon may have. And so the dress code regarding wearing clothing with violent words or images in the high school and heritage handbooks does not align with the policy, JICA, or the regulation JICA-R. So in order to provide clarity for the schools and students, we're recommending that the proposed revisions to policy JIC and JIC-R, which is just adding the word violent. So it's looking for violent images that's what's already, I think, in the high school handbook. But it's gonna be they're gonna make a change in the middle school handbook. And so this came up, we had a student wearing a NRA shirt that had a weapon on it. It wasn't necessarily meant to be violent. And there's some discussion with the parent, and we think we worked it out, but that kind of led to us having meeting in DLT and coming up with a kind of a common what's the purpose of this? And really it's to prevent, violent images, and so that's why the change in the policy. And literally, I think in the policy it's one word, and in the regulation it's the word violent or. So there's not a huge change. And I think it's a bit more in line with the community and what the intent of the dress code is.
So in your example, then the NRA with the gun would be an acceptable?
Under the new policy, under this it would be, yes. Because it's not meant to be a violent image, it's just, meant to support the ability to, have arms, which is purely legal, so.
Any other questions? This is just a discussion item. It's a first reading, so no action will be taken on it. Item 10B is a second reading. It is the action item of all of the policy updates from ASBA. Again, an action item. Any questions? Any second reading?
Ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion. Me too.
Then I will move to adopt the policy service advisories as published in our agenda and as shown.
Fantastic. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a wonderful month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the hidden question is, how many of us read every one of them?
I read some of them.
I want to.
I read the underlined parts, I just wanted those changes.